Welcome to Talkin' Jets. My name's Ryan, and I'll be your pilot tonight. I am joined alongside my co-pilot, Mr. Dom C. Dom, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, Ryan. 10 more days, right? 10 more sleeps until draft, man. Can't wait.
Oh, it's like Christmas morning. I cannot wait. I'm getting anxious. I'm excited. We are going to be joined by Will Parkinson for the second half of this show, around 8:30 or so. So make sure you hang out here to get some really cool insight into our New York Jets. But Dom, we heard some relatively big news. We knew it was coming for a while, but the New York Jets have a new uniform. And first, I want to ask you what you think of it, and then secondly, I want to ask you, which jersey did you get?
Well, I'm happy that we got him because if nothing more, I think we can kind of take the stench off of the losing seasons that the last 5 have brought us. So if there's anything positive, I will say that. In regards to which one do I like best, I'm definitely, without a doubt, going to go with the white jersey. Crisp, and I already own one. So I got one last year. So that makes it very, very easy for me to like.
I tried to get a Jermaine Johnson one like immediately, and it's funny, as soon as it came out,
one I got the Jermaine 11.
I was so excited, and I was like, I'm gonna get Jermaine. I'm so pumped, and I was like so busy like posting the reaction and like hitting the like creating the thumbnail for it, and then I like realized I was like, I should be ordering this right now. And I went on, and they didn't have my size, and I was like, no, I can't get the Jermaine Johnson jersey. So I wound up getting a Garrett 5 in green. I really like the green and white colorway. The green shirt or the green jersey with the white pants and the green stripe, it just looks so sharp. I haven't really loved the green tops in a while. I mean, like, obviously I love the last iteration of jersey, not the most recent one. But I think the green on green, as you see, like kind of ticking by here, the green on green actually looks really good comparatively to previous green on green iterations of it. So I'm really excited. And the Jets got a third helmet too at some point. So I'm excited to see what helmet they ultimately choose, and if we get something maybe exciting, maybe a white helmet with this.
Maybe the white helmet would be interesting. Listen, they sold last year, and I know it because I got one for my wife. A kind of like a gunmetal gray jersey. She got a
I have one. I got the Rodgers.
Yeah, she's got the Rodgers as well. And I think that with the green number, I think it's really, really sharp. I would love that.
That's like the
white
F-16.
helmet would be cool too.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like the F-16 fighter jet gray. That's what I thought when I saw it. I was like, oh, yo, tell me they're gonna start doing this. I think it's known as a fashion jersey. I think is what it was when I picked it up, and I was like, man, I really wish this was
cool.
Like, yeah, this is a really cool colorway. I was like, I would love if they ended up going with this, but yeah, hey, I'm happy with the change. I think the logo looks sharp. I really like the little decals. They even changed the jet on top, the like swoosh, from the previous 80s version of the swoosh. It's actually like a little bowed out now. I didn't save the picture. Actually, I could probably. It's scrolling by on this little ticker, but I might be able to pull it up and show you exactly.
I couldn't tell any different in any of that stuff. To be honest with you, I've never been one to really like live or die by the look of the uniform.
So get this. So yeah, if you look at and I guess I probably can't. Maybe I can do like a little. Watch this. I'm gonna create a circle, and we're gonna show this right here. We're gonna do, bam. It's gonna be red. Okay. So this part right here on the logo, if you notice, it bows up a little bit more there than the previous iterations. I did not realize that. I had to see this particular version of it to know exactly what was going on. The other thing that was changed, to my knowledge, was the thickness of both this bar right here and the bar on the E was the what I was told.
Yeah, I would have never noticed. Again, I don't pay that close of attention to it. So
I like the little details of like, okay, it actually looks like a jet, like the Concorde or something like that. Like, actually looks. I'm really excited, very pumped on it. Cool. The little oval logos that they have, I think, are fine. Nothing too crazy there. But you got your 11 Jermaine.
I already got the 11 white Jermaine. I will probably retire some of the old ones that I have,
Mm.
maybe put them up behind me over
Mhm.
here. And get, I will probably buy one. Not today, not right now, but definitely before the
Mm.
season. I already got a black Brees, not the new one, and I kind of
Mm.
like it, so I might go black.
Mm.
I don't know if it'll be Brees or whatnot, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Father's Day's
Yeah.
coming, and that's when I always get peppered with Jets memorabilia and stuff from the people that like at work. They always buy me. Everyone buys me Jets everything, which is I'm fine with it. My
Oh yeah.
wife, my kids, Jets, everything. So it's all good,
My
man.
my coworkers will usually, if they find something jet related, like my one buddy, he walking past one of those 50-cent machines and he saw like it was like a little jet. It wasn't even a bobblehead. It was like a little hat on a stick. And like he was trying to get an Eagles one and got a jet one. He's like, "Oh, here, I got this for you." I was like, "Thank you." It could be the most random thing. It could be a golf tee that has a jet thing on it. Whatever it is, it always winds up making its way to my office. Boys and girls, if you're just popping in the chat, make sure you hit that like button. We're going to have Will Parkinson join us around 8:30 or so. We're going to talk a little jerseys. We're going to talk some of the Jets' upcoming draft, what could potentially be going on. And if you're interested in going to the Talkin Jets draft party, tickets are on sale through tomorrow, and then we're done. No more sales. TalkinJets.com. Head over, link in the description down below if you guys would like to join us. We're excited. Crowd cam, 3-hour open bar, buffet. Should be a really, really good time. Let's see. I don't know if I have comments set up for here. So, Dom, I'm going to let you talk for a second while I figure out how to put comments on the screen again.
Yeah, that's cool. Hey, while you're figuring out comments, I guess we can talk about some of the news today that's draft related. Is
Ooh,
everyone's favorite target was in the building?
this is
Yes,
true.
Jordan Travis was here this weekend.
You troll you.
He was in the building today, along with one tight end extraordinaire, Brock Bowers. So very interesting. Ryan, I've been keeping a trying to keep an accurate log of every single meeting that the Jets have held with the prospects during this draft cycle. And there's a couple tight ends, 4 to be exact, that the Jets now have met with at one point, either in a top 30 or local visit or some sort of private workout pro day combination. And there's some of the bigger names, outside of Brock Bowers, who is the biggest name. They've met with Theo Johnson from Penn State and worked him out. Had a private workout, attended his pro day, had a private workout. Obviously, met with him at the Senior Bowl as well. They AJ Barner from Michigan. They attended his pro day. Met with him as well at the Senior Bowl, and then Dalen Hooker, the tight end from Colorado State, who was a Green Bean guy early in the season. Green Bean fell in love with him. I think it's because he's kind of ugly and has long hair. Green Bean seems to be like attracted to the ugliest folk, like. Who's his lineman crush this year? That ugly guy. He had one last year too, as well. The guy
Cody
with no
Mauch
teeth
had to
and
be
red hair.
one of his
Cody
favorites.
Mauch was one of his favorites. Yeah, and Dalen Hooker kind of looks like that. He looks like if Thor got jumped in a barroom brawl. That's what Dalen Hooker looks like, and he's another guy that they worked out at his pro day, attended his gave him a private workout. So interesting. I mean, listen, what does it mean, guys? I don't know. And I'm being as honest and as forthcoming as I can. I don't know exactly what it means when they're meeting with these guys, but bringing in 4 tight ends might specify that there's definitely some interest in the class and in maybe backfilling this. Maybe it means that they ain't that high on Zach Kuntz. Maybe it means they don't expect for Tyler Conklin to be here past this year. But it's funny because you got guys at all different levels of draftability, if you will. Like, you got obviously an early top half of the first round guy. You got some mid round guys, and then you got some later guys in there. So I think that's kind of interesting.
They're
Ryan,
casting a wide net, right? Like, so
yeah.
I feel like you could argue Bowers at the top of the draft, but like, let's say they want to go O-line or they want to go wide receiver. Now they've done their research on the other tight ends, and you have these pivot points, like the same way they're meeting with Brendan Rice and Rome Odunze. Like, we like Rome at 10, but if we go Bowers or we go O-line, we like Brendan Rice in the 3rd round.
Yeah. What do you think, Ryan? Maybe maybe this means something to you, the wide net that they're casting in the tight end room. But
Mm.
do you think that they're really focusing on bringing in somebody because they want more 12 personnel? They want to really pound the ball and pound the rock and kind of make their mark on their offense that way. Do you think that that could be a possibility? I mean, and if that's the case, where in the cards does Jeremy Ruckert fall?
Yeah, I kind of hope Ruckert ends up being our fullback. I'd be kind of all right with losing Bawden if I had to sacrifice one of the guys. I do think they're going to run more 12 personnel. I think just by adding Morgan Moses and John Simpson, two guys that are really stout in the run offense, run blocking game, I think that sort of tips their hand a little bit that way. I would love to see them add a beefy running back in the draft, someone that complements Breece and Izzy. And then obviously, if you can add a tight end, we lost 𝐃𝐨𝐦 𝐂. So I think purely from that perspective, they're probably looking to replace, that body, because we still had Kuntz on the roster last year. We still had Yeboah on the roster last year. But I think most of us would agree those two maybe special teams or roster bubble type guys. So kind of interested to see where they go. I definitely think they want to run more heavy personnel because I think that means they're controlling the clock a lot more. And Breece is, they're protecting Aaron Rodgers. They can work off the play action. There's so much they could do with a heavy personnel package. And Bowers would create a ton of matchup nightmares.
Yeah, but here's the catch to that, and here's where I'm going to play devil's advocate. If 12 personnel and heavy packages are kind of going to be more prominent and more of your base offense, where does Bowers fit into that? Because Bowers is not, he's
right?
Not your in. Yeah, but I mean, but then are you in 12 personnel? If you don't have two tight ends on the line, technically, are you in 12 personnel? No, you're probably in 11 with a big slot.
Probably not. Yeah, you wouldn't call it probably 12 personnel. You'd probably call it like a heavy package where you could have Bowers lined up in line and then move him like in motion or something to dictate a matchup. Because him and Conklin, both, good pass catchers. I think you could dictate matchups, a lot, especially with like forcing a defense to go into, multiple linebackers on the field and they're taking less have less DBs on the field. Now all of a sudden Bowers is a mismatch or Conklin is a mismatch or Breece out of the backfield's a mismatch. Like there's a lot of things that could happen out of that base formation and play action being a monster one as well.
Yeah, and again, going back to these visits that they've had to the tight ends during this cycle, you got two guys in Bowers and Holker who are your true big slot type pass catching first style tight ends, and then you got Theo Johnson and AJ Barner who are more of your inline guys who can affect the game both, in the short area in the pass game, and also as inline blockers. So I think it's interesting that they're. You hit the nail on the head that the wide net has been cast on how to build or different ways to really build this offense. And we only got 10 more days to figure out before which one will really come into play, and we'll have a better grasp of what the offense is going to look like next Thursday. Man, it can't come fast enough.
Dick Chimney's Burner comes in with his member super chat, says the last jersey release was I was very disappointed. This one was poorly kept secret, but I'm so excited that the Gase era stink is over. Yeah, they was so cringy. Like even I remember watching it at the time, and like they're coming out in the jerseys and like smoke or whatever, and there's check this out, and they're doing like the poses.
Yeah, is that when Leo Williams came out with the hair and
Yup.
Sure.
And I'm just like, this really is awkward and disappointing. And then this one, everyone knew this was being changed. The entire season, it felt like we were like, okay, this is going to be the new uniform. We're just going to see a green and black colorway of it. And the way they did it with the video release and the logos and the different things. I don't know if you saw the little story of the guy that painted his chest with a J on it and his buddy. Yeah, that hit the heartstrings, in such a way. I thought the Jets handled it phenomenally well. I think they hit it out of the park with the style of these jerseys. There's not anything on this that I would change other than maybe getting our third helmet being the white helmet with the green Jet logo on top. I feel like that would look really, really awesome.
Yeah.
Blitzkrieg comes in with super chat. Says, hey guys, with the DUI, where do you think Sweat goes? Is he a fit for the Jets? Anything new on Carl Lawson and Miami? So I haven't seen anything on Carl Lawson. Going to Miami since I think last week. I think was the last time
Yeah.
I saw some
He
rumors
went
about
he
that.
went in for he went for a visit with both
Mhm,
Miami and Buffalo, but I don't think
mhm,
anything came about after with either. My guess is that you probably won't see a guy like Carl Lawson sign until after the draft, which
mhm,
stinks because I think he would count towards your comp pick equation if he did sign before.
mhm,
So I don't know if that's going to happen before the draft. In regard to the beginning question, Blitz Crew, like Sweat's going to be an interesting one, man, because from what I understand, um, there was a lot of red flags already before the DUI in
mhm,
regards to his attitude and his commitment to football. They said he liked to party a lot, and that happens to be that seemed to be the sentiment from a lot of the University of Texas guys.
mhm,
And that a lot of the pro personnel during these meetings were asking him if he was um, done with that, and if that was beyond him. Um,
mhm.
and it wasn't. So is he a fit for the Jets? I absolutely think he is a fit for the Jets. He would be, a quintessential one technique guy. I could also see the Jets completely having him off of their board because
Mhm,
the character stuff seems to matter more to this regime than it has in regimes past. There's something in me that like the Bill Belichick's Bill Parcells of the world used to like some of these troubled guys that they can make the
mhm,
reclamation projects and get them right and so on and so forth. You just think of even after Parcells, like the Austin Seferian-Jenkins, where got a
mhm,
second chance with the Jets. I don't know if Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh are going to be into this. I could easily see Sweat being off their board, but yeah,
mhm,
would he be a fit for the Jets? I think he'd be a fit for any team because I think he's really not scheme specific. You could put him in a four-man front and have him play the one tech. You could put him in an odd man front and have him play the true nose tackle, and I think he'd play very, very well at best. But listen, it only takes one team to take a chance, but you could see Devondre Sweat slip into day three. I wouldn't
mhm.
be I wouldn't be too shocked.
Yeah, I think when you start like talking to teams and they're asking you questions at the combine or at pro days or whatever, and they're drilling down into your personality. Oh no, it's beyond me. I'm out of that stage of my life, and then bam, get hits with the DWI. I feel like that is an immediate yank off the big board. I don't expect the Jets to have him on their board whatsoever. Alan comes in with a super chat. Says
Frank
Green Bean
Crum,
loves
yes,
Frank Crum, the right tackle
that's
out of Wyoming. DMC, can you give us a little info other than like the big ugly himself?
man. Listen, here's the reality about Frank Crum. He's a big guy. He does not move very well. Um, I don't know if he's going to be drafted. If he is, I mean, he is as big of a dart throw as they crumb. I'm trying to pull him up here and see even just the measurables for you. I do
Mhm,
remember watching him at the combine, and you were just like, oosh, oof, God, like you watch him in some of the drills, and he's got to repeat a couple
mhm.
things and do some stuff like that. So yeah, I don't think there's going to be a lot of Frank Crum love from the NFL come draft day. Um, but yeah, but who knows? I mean, he's a big body, and I'll just leave it at that.
Dano comes in. He says, I think the new plain silhouette would make a terrific eyebrow stencil for Talking Jets. Ryan, don't you think? Yeah, I'll just get my little like I'll have the jet swoosh right there and I'll have this nice little peak. It looked terrible. Oh, sure, why not? Rico the Pup comes in, says, I can see them line Bowers up on the line like they occasionally do with Travis Kelce. He chips a guy to help out the offensive tackle and then releases. So, Dom, do you see that in part of Bowers' game, or is that not really his thing?
Yeah, no, I really I don't, and I know a lot of people. I've seen some crazy comps for Bowers, and listen, full disclosure, Ryan, I'm not
Mm,
downplaying Bowers. I think he's really, really good. He's the seventh rated player in my entire class. Um, but some of the comps I think are a little bit nuts. And,
mm,
and and I think that's people just trying to get comps out of there. The difference
mm,
between Travis Kelsey and George Kittle, who I frequently seen comp to Brock Bowers, those guys are dominant,
mm,
dominant inline run blockers. Now, Brock Blau- Brock Bowers is a good blocker. He's willing, he's able, he's capable. But it's not he's not a people mover. He's not a dominant force in line. He's more of a reach guy. He can reach out into that second level and pick off a linebacker and really, seal or seal the lane, so on and so forth. He does great work out in the perimeter, downfield and so on and so forth. But he's at 240 pounds. You're just not going to line him up next to Morgan Moses and duo down on a defensive end, or yeah, you might chip him in release or something like that. That's fine, but I mean, I just don't see many packages on any NFL team where you're going to have Brock Bowers lined up in line. That's not that's not utilizing his skill set to maximum benefit. You want to get, what is Brock Bowers known for? He's known for what he does with the ball in his hands. The yards
Mhm.
after the catch stuff. Get the ball out in his hands, and you're not going to do that from, from your typical inline tight end position. Put him out as a big slot, fine. Put him out at, on the wing, or as a, lined up as a wing, coming out of the backfield, so on and so forth. Get the ball in his hands and make people miss. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, again, willing blocker, very, very efficient at specific kind of blocks, but a people mover, he's just not. That's just the reality. And I'm not trying to piss off any of the Bowers boys, but that's the reality. Is that
Mhm.
Travis Kelce and George Kittle cut their teeth in this league because they got on the field and developed into real offensive weapons because they got on the field because they were dominant run blockers, both of them, and they
Mhm.
still are. You know what I mean?
Do you think there's anything to like being drafted in a later round or maybe a middle round and not having that high end pedigree? Like, is there some sort of mentality that may come in, like where you're a first round pick, you're kind of like entitled to have that starting role? Like, is there any world where you see maybe uh, like a Bowers, like not try to refine his blocking technique? Like, is blocking something you can, build on going into the NFL? Like, even though that's a weaker part of his game right now, I would think it's something he could try to work on.
Sure, it's something that he can get better at, but I mean, there's also the biggest part of it. It's not necessarily technique, but I mean, just the overall body mass that he carries. Yeah, if you want to put 25 pounds on him, I'm sure he can be a much more effective people mover at the inline tight end position. But how much is that going to affect the other, skills and attributes that he has that has really made Brock Bowers the offensive weapon that he is? You know what I mean?
So I got tagged in something earlier today, and I did not drill down further on it. I didn't look into it at all. But I guess Lombardi was talking on his podcast about how the Falcons and the Vikings might wind up swapping first round picks going 8 to 11 because of the tampering charges, with the Falcons going after Kirk Cousins and the Vikings didn't get an opportunity to try and sign him. How does that impact the New York Jets? Like, is this a good thing for us because now all of a sudden the Bears could get the top defensive player at 9 if the Vikings are sitting at 8? Or with the Vikings seemingly having to come up for a quarterback anyway, they're just coming up to 8. Now the team that's trading down with them drops just in front of the Jets and might be more likely to take a player that we want at 8. Like, how do you kind of see that, and have you heard anything about this?
I've heard that, or I saw it, bantered about. I don't know if it has any legs, to be honest with
Mhm.
you. It would be unprecedented if they did that, if they made them swap first round picks.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, I think I saw it from one of those click engaging web, Twitter pages. That's the only
Mhm.
place that I saw it. So maybe it's true. I haven't seen anything of substance that says
Mhm.
that's going to happen. Honestly, I think again, it depends what the focus is. I know that you happen to be, all in on Roma Dunze. So
Mhm.
if Roma Dunze is the focus, I think it's going to be to the detriment of the Jets, because
Mhm.
the Jets have to do whatever they can, in my humble opinion, to get in front of Chicago if Roma Dunze is the target. I
Mhm.
don't even know if they plan on doing that. I don't know if they're going to have the bandwidth of the firepower to really move up, even if it's those two spots.
Mhm.
Um, so, to me, I think if Roma Dunze is on the board, he's going to be a Chicago Bear at 9. I
Mhm.
absolutely do. Unless, Atlanta being that safe spot to trade up for, which kind of benefits the Jets. And again, this is with a Roma Dunze, goggle
Mhm.
colored lens on. It benefits the Jets in a multitude of ways. One, um, you trade in only up 2 spots. So if you're going to give up some capital, it's not going to cost too much. Probably what, 2 fours? Maybe a 4 this year and a 3 next year, or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
2, you have Atlanta, who will probably be willing to move down a couple spots and still land the guy that they want. And 3, like I said before, it gives you the best opportunity to get in front of Chicago. I think Atlanta. I think. I know Arizona seems to be the hot button spot that everyone thinks that they're going to trade down. I don't see it. I think I think Arizona is going to just stick and take one of the wide receivers, whichever one's on the board. If it's Harrison, or if Harrison goes 3 to New England, it'll be Neighbors. So I think the Chargers and then Atlanta are the 2 spots that people are going to move and shake to get up with. And listen, it's not out of the realm of possibility, Ryan, that Minnesota doesn't end up going up for J.J. McCarthy. They might be able to sit and land them right where they are at 11. Are they going to be willing to roll those dice? I don't know.
I would be surprised with both Denver and Vegas right behind them, looking for a quarterback as well. With the Bears, I do think 𝐒 is still in play for them. I think D-line could definitely be in play for them. And then also just a trade out. They only have 4 picks in this draft, 2 of which are in the top 9. So I could see a situation where they want to recoup some picks, and they're just a cheaper option to trade up with, as opposed to trying to trade up with the New York Jets, for example. Like, we might be asking for a second. Another team might be like, hey, we'll give you a third. And the Bears are like, yeah, absolutely. Like, come on up. So I could see something along those lines happening too. Now, I guess when I'm thinking of the quarterback market and how things are going, like you kind of expect 1, 2, 3, whether it's the Patriots making the pick or not. Like if Jaden Daniels, I think, makes it to 3, I think you could see the Raiders come up to 3. I think if Drake May falls to 3, there's a situation where I think the Vikings may want to come up to 3. And that would just cause a whole bunch of chaos. I have no idea how this plays out. The top 10 is getting incredibly interesting as we get closer and closer to the draft. And I don't know if that's just me buying into like storylines and stuff, but like it feels like I'm not quite sure what's going to happen. I sort of have an idea of like, I think 4 quarterbacks are going to go before us. I think at least 2 wide receivers. I think 1 defensive player and Joe Alt. And then the Bears are that mystery sort of like, I don't know what they're doing at 9. Could you see D-line there, or you think they're kind of penciled in for 𝐒?
I think if 𝐒 is on the board, that he will be the pick. But I also think, like, I'm leaning more and more that there's a possibility that the first 6 picks are the 3 quarterback in any specific order, the 3 quarterbacks and the 3 wide receivers. That wouldn't surprise me one bit, especially if New England chooses to go Marvin Harrison, which I think if I was New England Patriots, I would. Yeah, you have your bridge guy. You have a very high 2nd round pick. If you want to move up, let's start putting some bones on the team before you fire a rookie quarterback in there. I think we've proven teams have proven time after time that might not be the best path to success. Like, build the team around them, then bring the quarterback in. That's at least the way I would do it, especially if you have a talent like Marvin Harrison on a team that's void of offensive weapons. Do that and go, go pluck a 2nd round quarterback. Go trade up from 37 or 35, wherever you are in the 3rd and 2nd round, to the end of the 1st round and go get a guy like, a Bo Nix or a Spencer Rattler, who I happen to think is probably the better option for them. Like, you give me Marvin Harrison and Spencer Rattler, I'll take that all day long over Jaden Daniels and somebody else.
Especially because, like, I do think the Raiders, if Jaden Daniels makes it to 3, I think the Raiders are going to move heaven and earth to try and get up there. And I think they'll overpay. And I think the Patriots, who saw the Dolphins trade out in a similar capacity, could wind up doing the same thing and then look to come back up, for a different player if they're looking to do that. Alan comes in and says, Brock Bowers is Adam Gase in disguise. Don't fall for it. God. I think the intriguing part to me for Bowers is the yak ability that the Jets seemingly want to try and have on this offense. Like, obviously you already got Brees and Garrett, but Rodgers, the last time he won his MVP, over 50% of his yards were all yak yards. So, you could argue like a tight end that gets open either behind the line of scrimmage or near the line of scrimmage, it conceivably would be, quick to get open, and thus helping neutralize maybe a porous offensive line, or if someone gets hurt, it helps that out. Because we saw Miami do that. Miami didn't have a great offensive line last year. and Tua got the ball out in like 2 seconds flat. Neutralizes a pass rush. Can't get to the quarterback if you throw it before the guys get there. So, like, is there any thought to maybe that side of things with Bowers and how it might play into what Rodgers is currently doing in his career now versus what he was maybe, 8 years ago?
Yeah, listen, what you said conceptually makes sense what Miami's doing, but I'd almost question, like, you're talking about the offensive mind of Mike McDaniel versus the offensive mind of Nate Hackett, and I don't think they're in the same stratosphere right now. You know what I mean? Again, we could say all we want, but that's something that needs to be discussed. Is that we're going to bring Bowers or this unique chess piece of a weapon in, and the guy that we're going to ask to scheme him open is Nate freaking Hackett, Mister four hitches, four hitches and inside zone guy.
So Python Bite comes in and he's saying the exact same thing you're saying. Like, what makes you think the most inept offensive play caller in the league can get the best out of Bowers? And I think everyone that is in favor of Bowers is probably saying, well, because of Rodgers. Like Rodgers is the reason why you feel like it could work. If you are relying solely on Nathaniel Hackett to be the guy to get guys open or to have success on offense, I think most of us are probably like not feeling great about that particular thought process there.
Yeah. I mean, it's the truth. I mean, listen, you got to imagine that Rodgers is going to have some leeway to adjust plays at the line of scrimmage, obviously. But, again, the offensive still, even with Aaron Rodgers there, is still Nate Hackett's. The design, the concept, the build, the install of the offense is still Nate Hackett. So, can Rodgers adjust at the line of scrimmage to what he sees? Yes, but he's not going to, I don't know. I don't know if there's, if one can make up for such ineptitude of Nate Hackett. Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning, and Jesus Christ himself combined still might struggle in a Nate Hackett offense.
Dano comes in. He says, hot take, Bowers is the third Bulldog I'd want to add to this team. Thoughts on that, Dom?
Let's see. So Ladd McConkey.
And Ladd McConkey. Those are probably the two, right?
Yeah. Listen, here's my stance on this, and I don't know how public I've become with it or not. I'm not against Bowers. He wouldn't be my first option. For the majority of this cycle, I was in absolutely leaning heavy on team offensive line, but I've warmed up to the idea of a weapon if with some caveats. Like, if you tell me that we're going to bring in a veteran or two, kind of cheap backup linemen, I'm just shooting names out. Just say like a Donovan Smith or a Bakhtiari if he passes a physical, or a Connor McGovern comes back, or another guard that gives you a little bit guard tackle flexibility. I'd be more open to the idea of a weapon first, and then complementing that later on in the third or fourth round. But if it's Bowers, then it's Bowers. And like I said, that's my biggest concern with like I said, if I have to choose a weapon, I'd rather it be a wide receiver. But if it's going to be Bowers, I'm not going to be like completely pissed off. I'm going to be confused at times, I'm sure, because we're really putting the health of our offense into the feeble mind of Nate Hackett, and that concerns me. I'd be lying if it didn't.
Now, let's say the top three receivers are off the board. Would you be like on board with a Brian Thomas Jr. over a Bowers at 10? Or are you kind of like, if it's, are you more like trade down?
So yeah, in my ideal, my ideal situation would probably be, Neighbors or Harrison, if there was a way to make that happen. That would be obviously tier A. Tier B is sitting or maybe a little bump up and ending up with a guy like Bowers. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐃. Tier C would probably be trade back and accumulate more draft capital. And then tier D would either be the best offensive lineman at 10 or Bowers. So that's how I feel, and I'm fine with either. I'm fine with any of those four. But if I had to put them in pecking order, Figure out a way somehow if one of those two top receivers slips. But again, that would come with the caveat that you got to get me some veteran offensive line
Sure.
backup. You got to bring in a Donovan Smith. You got to bring in a another guard. You got to somebody who's left in free agency to kind of supplement the holes that we're going to have on the offensive line when these guys miss time, because they will. And
Yeah.
and to your question,
Mhm.
Brian Thomas Jr. is not my favorite, so
Mm.
he's not the wide receiver I would target if I was looking to trade down and look at the weapons.
Which one is it?
I mean, listen, if we traded down to just say, you just say the middle of the round, 15, 16 or something like that,
Mm.
I lean more. That's probably where I would choose Bowers over Brian Thomas Jr. Or
Mm.
I like Adonai Mitchell a whole heck of a lot. I think he's going to be a much better pro than he was in college. I see a lot of CeeDee Lamb in his game.
Mm.
Body control and just spectacular hands. Runs a more fluid and nuanced route tree than Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr. gives me a lot of Marquez Valdez-Scantling vibes, man.
Oh God, that's terrifying.
A lot of 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐂 Anderson vibes. Like, he's good at going,
Yeah.
and that's about it.
I do like Mitchell a lot. That would be an exciting pick. That's a little earlier than I kind of penciled him in for, in my brain, but I could understand that.
Yeah, he'll be gone before the top 20 for sure.
I think I fall in line with your thought process at the very least. Like, if you could move up and get a Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr., I'm down with that. I think if you could sit tight and get 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐂, I'm down with that. And then after that, I'm kind of like team. I mean, I definitely team trade down regardless. But if you can move down and get Bowers, or move down and get 𝐒𝐻, that would make me feel a little bit better than like sitting and picking them at 10. But in the worst case scenario where you can't back out at 10 and you have to make the pick, I think it's going to end up being one of 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐂, Bowers, or 𝐒𝐻. I think those are the three guys, at least I've narrowed it down to in my mind.
Yeah, for sure. And listen, if they stuck at 10, because that's the funny thing, is that the trade back idea is great. Like I said, like, that's right there for me. But I don't want to trade too far back. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to get out of that tier where I'm taking a guy that if he has to play this year, I'm like, oh man, did I take too much of a project? Like the Tyler Guytons of the world, who I like, but there's still a lot of project left in them. You got to get me one of these Fontenau's, you got to get me one of these Fuagas, you got to get me one of these Fashanu's, so on and so forth.
Bearded comes in. He says, if Bowers is such a great prospect, why don't I see any mocks sending him to the Bears at number 9?
I mean, you know what, Bearded? I've said that a lot. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Could you just argue that 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐂 is the better prospect?
You could, maybe. I mean, if you're asking me personally, I have them relatively close. I think I have Bowers at 7 and 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐂 at 9 or 10. So they're right there. They're probably in the same tier. It's just going back. Shane Waldron coming over from Seattle. I think that's his name, right? Who's the Seattle offense coordinator now in Chicago? I think it's Shane Waldron. Somebody in the chat correct me. That's the offensive coordinator coming over from Seattle to Chicago now. Ran the most heavy sets, the highest percentage of 12 personnel. So it's not a bad option. They paid Cole Kmet a pretty penny, but he's your inline guy. You could bring Brock Bowers in. I don't think it's a crazy idea, Bearded, that he could go to 9. But again, I think for them, 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐂 makes sense because you have Keenan Allen, 33 years old, been injury riddled the past couple years, and getting paid a big contract. You're one and done with him, so at least you have some continuity if you bring in 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐂. So that's why I think that they'll side 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐂 over Bowers.
Let's see. Billy SBC says, would like to see a reflective hologram green on the Jets uniform like the hologram on a $100 bill? That would be impressive. I don't know how you do that. We could get like a UV light, and you just got to spin a little bit, and it's like a big old screw the pats on the side of it, pops up.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And Will's on his way. He just texted me, so he should say Will said he'll be here in a second. So
Cool. We're going to have Will Parkinson joining us in just a few moments here. Make sure you hit that like button for us if you're enjoying the programming. Silas comes in and says, guys, the Bears don't need a tight end. They just played 𝐒𝐻 last year. Y'all don't watch football, Dom. You only watch Jet games. LOL.
Yeah.
That's all right. I mean, like, two tight ends, you can see two tight ends. And especially if people are considering Bowers as a big slot, then maybe people don't view him entirely as a tight end anyway.
Yeah, and I think I just answered this, Silas. I said, you can utilize, if Bowers is utilized as your big slot, as your, slot weapon, then they just pay, as I just said, they just paid 𝐒𝐻 a big chunk of money. So take your comment back, my friend. I watch plenty of football.
Rico says, I've seen plenty of mocks with Bowers to the Bears. It's just that they're in the same situation as us. Older guy for 1 year at wide receiver. If at 9, 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐂 would have been mocked to us all the time. So if we flip-flop positions, the Bears and Jets are like essentially in the same position. Coaching staff on the hot seat. You got a Chargers injured wide receiver on a 1-year deal. And you're trying to figure out, are you going with the wide receiver? Are you going with a tight end? Are you going with an offensive lineman? Maybe they're going with a defensive lineman. Something along those lines. Now, I did look over at Mock Draft Database, and they aggregate like a whole bunch of mock drafts from team websites and things like that. And Bowers was selected at 9, I think 1% of the time. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐂 was 12, and then 29% was other, and this is since March 1st. And then 56% of those draft picks were defensive linemen. So like that sort of has me thinking like maybe the fan sentiment is steering away from wide receiver at number 9, but that doesn't necessarily mean the regime is going to do that. Obviously,
nor does it necessarily state what was taken picks 1 through 8. Maybe it's that scenario where 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐂 is off the board already.
So no. I mean, maybe some of them were, but by and large, a lot of them were 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐂 still on the board at that point in time. Interesting. It's interesting stuff. Now, I don't know. I guess when we go to pick 32, do you think, 72, do you think 72 is fully predicated on what we do at number 10 overall? Or do you think there's some situation where, like we're going to get the most impactful player at 10 and then we are going BPA, the rest of the way out, or we're just going BPA the whole time? But how much does that 10 pick hinge what we do at 72?
So it's a good question. And the way I look at it is like this. If 10 is a weapon, I'll say this. I think 72 is probably going to be BPA no matter what we do. I think it could probably be more weapon if you go elsewhere with the first round pick. If you go weapon in round 1, you can go BPA through the rest because, again, I'm going to be operating under the mindset that they're going to still bring in a veteran guy after the draft to fill in the line, and then it gives you the opportunity to, take a cornerback, which I really think they're going to do in this draft class. Maybe, take another safety, which they can add, a running back, or maybe that's where they take a quarterback, so on and so forth. So I think that there's more of an opportunity if it's strictly BPA if we go weapon in round 1. If we don't go weapon in round 1, I'd probably lean a little bit more towards it's a weapon at 72 regardless.
I could understand that. I think that makes a lot of sense because you might not get like the offensive lineman you like at 72 versus if you go weapon at 10. And I do like the idea of bringing McGovern in. I like the idea of bringing in some type of tackle. I'd love Bakhtiari, but if he wants to start or envisions himself still as a starter somewhere, then maybe he goes that route and doesn't choose New York Jets. And maybe we fall for like a Donovan Smith or something. Bearded comes in with a super chat, says, looks like the Bears just signed Everett as well. So, oops, towards the tight end at I
didn't know that, to be honest with you. I didn't know that. But, I don't know. Does Gerald Everett really move the needle all that much? I don't know. But you're right. Fair enough.
Rico comes in. Rico says, I sure am hoping Eberflus, being a defensive player, makes them look at a guy like Jared Verse or Dallas Turner or Byron Murphy, or someone trades with them to grab a quarterback in a surprise move. I still think there's a very likely situation where the Bears are moving out of number 9 because of how few picks they have.
Yeah, they only have 4 picks. Absolutely. They only have 4 picks in the draft. Getting into the second round is going to be tough. That's the truth. But you can probably move down and gain multiple later mid-round picks excuse me, or late round picks to kind of supplement there. Um, that makes absolute sense to me that they might want to move down, especially if, like you said, like I take Dallas Turner out of the equation because I think he has a chance to go relatively early. But if Jared Verse or Byron Murphy, there's a pretty fair chance that they can drop down, into the late teens, early 20s, and still nab one of those guys, or they'll still be there for them. So it gives them more options if they're looking to add more draft capital for sure.
Yeah, when we were all talking about like the Indianapolis Colts possibly moving up to get Brock Bowers, it's like, oh, what could the Jets do to like swap? To me, it always sort of struck me as like, well, wouldn't they move up with the Bears if we're like the team that's projected to get Bowers? That's probably like the best case scenario for a lot of Jet fans. If Bowers does go in front of us, then by virtue of that, you're probably getting an 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐂 or someone like that. All right, we've got our guest joining the way for the tail end of the show. I'd like to welcome Will Parkinson to the show. Will, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Dude? Oh man, awesome! I'm glad you can come, dude. Appreciate it.
Of course. I appreciate having me.
So first, before we get into any like draft talk and stuff, what is your thoughts on the legacy uniform? What jersey do you want to get first?
Yeah, I like them. I think the green is a big addition. Obviously, I think that one was kind of needed. The Jets have not worn green at home in quite some time. It feels like they've done everything they could not to wear green at home, which kind of sucks, honestly. So I think that's probably the one that I'm most excited about. Obviously, I think a white helmet is something we'll see in the future, but I think the green on white is definitely a clean look. We obviously saw the white last year, so I think it's like that one's exciting, but we've kind of already seen it, obviously. So the green, then the revamped black with the better collar, I think is another huge addition. So I think safe options, obviously grab a green sauce or something like that. But I don't know, maybe a Quincy Williams, Jermaine Johnson, guys like that maybe not everyone has, but at least could be a little different, but still a guy that'll be around for a little bit.
I love it.
Yeah, I was telling Ryan I love the white ones, and that's mainly because I already got the legacy white. I don't have to go and spend $150 on it. So.
Oh, the green is sharp. I got a green Garrett one this morning. I was like, this looks really nice. I love that they did the white collar.
Yeah,
I was afraid they were going to roll green on green. I was like, oh, don't do it.
The collar's huge. That's the go-to one, right? I think that's the one that you look at and you say, oh, that's the one that that's the part of the jersey that I think is different. I think that was not having any New York stuff on the jersey before, and then the collar was kind of ugly a little bit. I think that change is big, and the green on white in like a 4:00 window home game against Miami, Buffalo, that's the kind of jersey you want.
Yeah. So now as we pivot towards the draft, are you feeling a particular position, or does it really depend how the top of the board falls to you? What do you think the Jets should do at 10, and what do you want them to do at 10?
So I'm in a mix of, I think what they will do and what they should do are kind of similar. I've been pretty much of the mindset now for, 2-3 months. It should be pass catcher, then O-line, then Bowers, and or a trade back or something of that nature. I think the Jets should be aggressive here. I think this is an opportunity where, they have enough draft capital to move up if they wanted to. It's a draft with 3 really elite wide receiver prospects. They need another receiver pretty badly. I know they got Mike Williams, but I like Mike Williams. I also think outside of Garrett Wilson, this entire other receiver core could not be on the roster, in 12 months. And I just think it's a little risky to go into a year where I hope Mike Williams is awesome, but it's almost better if you don't have to count on him at all. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, we have like a top 25 receiver on our roster that we just like kind of didn't have to worry about, and let him kind of ease back into it a little bit. I think offensive line, I get the reasoning why. I think this is a good offensive line class. I think it's a deep offensive line class, especially with interior guys. My only concern with offensive line is outside of Alt and Olu, and maybe if you view Fontenot as a true left tackle in the future, you're probably drafting a right guard or a right tackle in the top 10, which is fine. I'm not saying it's not. We've seen teams have success, but is that the best use of an asset? Maybe, maybe not. And then I like Brock Bowers, and I think he's a really good prospect. He's one of the blue chip guys in this class. I, don't you? I hate being the beat up on Hackett guy because I do think like
we already did it, dude.
Yeah.
But it's just like
you can just hop on board. We already beat up on Hackett before about the same exact
I just
thing.
think that's like I worry how he, can he use Tyler Conklin well, let alone can he use Brock Bowers well, who is a guy who can get open on his own. It's not that he needs to be schemed open, but a lot of his production is yards after the catch. A lot of it is easy touches and just like, hey, dude, go out, athlete the rest of the team. So I just worry a little bit there, but I think it's got to be an offensive player first off. And I think I'm just of the mindset if Rome Odunze gets past pick 6, I think they Jets should trade up to 5 and go try to draft Marv. Like I've been all over that for a while. That said, if you want the more realistic option, that feels like not as much capital. Moving up to 8 probably costs you a 4 or multiple 4s. But if you get 2 really good players at 10 and 73, like the roster is good enough where, the Jets need to be able to hit on a fifth round interior offensive lineman that could play like 6 to 8 games a year. Like most good teams do it. So if Rome's there at 8, like do you have to give Atlanta a 4 and next year's 3? I don't know. Maybe you do. And it's like, hey, it's a little pricey, but Rome, Garrett Wilson, and Breece Hall all under the age of 24 for the next couple years with Rodgers, and then with a rookie quarterback going forward, like you're in a pretty damn good situation. So
yeah, and from a contractual standpoint too, the wide receiver, you're talking a $20 million position as opposed to like a $12 million position with the tight end.
Yeah.
I mean, now pass catcher, I'm team weapon as well. I definitely want to go that route. I'm a little less. I don't want to say spooked for Bowers, but like I would be okay with doing it mainly because we have Rodgers, and I'm just hoping that like he can overcome the Hackett of it all. But
of course. The one thing with Bowers that's also he's an interesting prospect from the aspect of like this dude's been the best offensive player in his team with other guys. Dom loves AD Mitchell, like he was the best. I'm just saying this. That there's guys that like he was the best player on the Georgia team at age 19, and it's like you can't take that away from him. You can't take away that he was the best offensive player the year after, and then this year even comes back for the SEC title game when he has nothing to prove. He's a 2-time national champion. He's accomplished everything he needs to. He's already Georgia's all-time leader in X, Y, and Z. Like I said, I think Bowers has this weird thing going for him and against him. He's not Kyle Pitts, which I think some people view as going for him, right? He's much more of a polished tight end. He's a much better blocker. He's a much more fluid mover in terms of like actual on football field stuff and way more productive. He doesn't have going for him is he's not 6'7", 270 pounds and runs a 4.3. And he didn't test, and he has a bad picture next to Gronk, who's one of the biggest humans on earth, let alone like in the NFL. You know what I mean? I think he just has so much going for him and against him. You can argue he could be Kittle or Hawkinson or Sam Laporta or Kelsey, right? And that's where it like gets you, or Andrews, that gets you excited. Then you can also go, I don't know, man. Like most tight ends in the first round just don't pan out well. Do we want the Jets, the team that's going to break that? I don't know. So I guess that's what's the difficult part of Bowers, and I'm just not sure why people hate him or love him. Like, there's no like, hey, I just like Brock Bowers. I think he's a really good prospect, and like, I'd be cool with it. It's like, this guy sucks, or like, people in my mentions called me a Bowers sexual, whatever that means. Like, it's insane.
Well, 𝐃𝐨𝐦 says I could swim in Will's voice for days. So 𝐃𝐨𝐦 is
way to keep it creepy, Kuka. Will, let me ask you this. About value. All right. So we're going to play the game weapon and offensive line. All right.
Yeah.
Where do you think so you talked about you want the pass catcher first, and that's fine because a lot of people fall on that page. But I'm okay with that too. I was talking with Ryan, and the chat earlier before. Like, I'm cool with that. With the kind of with a little like sentiment that we're going to address the offensive lineman with a veteran after the draft. Like that makes me a little bit more comfortable. But just say that's told me we're going to get Donovan Smith on a $3 million contract after the draft. Fine. You want to draft weapon? Do you think that the value of a weapon in round 1 and say a lineman in round 3, Dominic Pooney, if we were to fall or somebody along those lines, or do you think that the value is better if you go an offensive line to guys like Javon Baker or Brendan Rice or whomever, that Malachi Corley, whoever that 3rd round pick? I just think that 3rd round, that 3-4, the value of the wide receivers is still a little bit higher. So overall, like I could get on board with offensive lineman early and one of those guys in the third round. Like where do you fall? Where do you see the value of the offensive line class to the value of the wide receiver class in that sense?
Yeah, I think the receiver class is elite at the top, and then I think it's really good, like picks 15 through 65, 70. I think the one thing that concerns me with going, the problem is I'm sure you guys have done this a million times. You could talk yourself into both being a good route, right? Hey, we go get Trey Fontenot. He starts at left guard or right tackle or left tackle or wherever on the offensive line because someone's bound to get hurt. And John Simpson's coming off an okay year, and like I like the value of the contract, but reality, he was a year ago. He was probably a guy that was looking to be a CFL guy at one point, right? So maybe, hey, Fontenot starts around year day one. It's Tittman, AVT, and Fontenot on the center, and like the interior guys, and he can be your left tackle down the line. And hey, we go get Malachi Corley or one of these guys at 73. Hey, you're feeling pretty good about yourself. My concern, I guess, from that perspective is third round receivers, like, again, I worry, like, do they have the expertise? Yes, Rodgers gives you the boost, right? And it's not, again, I'm not trying to beat a packet, but I almost have the same argument with Bowers in a much lesser scale of like, they draft a third round receiver. Do they have the McVay that's going to bring in a Puka that's going, hey, this guy's super smart about football. I'm going to put him in X, Y, and Z spots to get him free touches. And he's just a really good football player and he'll figure it out. Like, that's my one concern there. But I don't think this is a really good receiver class, and I wonder, because there's so many good ones, do guys get pushed down 73 that might, is, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example here that, like, does somebody get moved down to the end of round 2, beginning of round 3 that we're just not expecting? We've seen it happen before. So I think if that's your mindset.
Here's a name, Jalen Polk. I know you like him, and he's on that cusp that if there's a big push on offensive weapons, he could get pushed down, somebody like that.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I think I wonder, people really love Xavier Worthy as much as that we're talking about here. I think as Ladd McConkey, people have maybe he's going in the first round. I think he's probably more of a middle of the second round guy. I love him. Like, I think he's an awesome prospect. I wish he would fall to 73 because he'd be great. But I don't know if he's a really good prospect. I think people like Pearsall better. He's a little bigger, and
well, McConkey
like
can't stay healthy either. He's got to show that.
He's got to stay healthy too. And we're talking about McConkey. Like, Bowers was obviously the same. Again, another guy that Bowers on the same offense with.
Yeah, true.
This is my reason. You talk about value. This is my reason. And I think, you mentioned Dominic Pooney. For example, I think I don't think Christian Haynes is going to be there at 73. I think a guy like Cooper Beatty, Mahogany, the center out of Georgia, who's literally slipping my mind right now. Yeah, there's just like guys filtering through my head, and things like that. But I just think, like, hey, let's just say you went, I don't know, you end up with Rome at 8, or maybe Rome flips to 9 or 10, whatever. The Jets end up with Rome. I'm just using for the example, or Brian Thomas. We'll just go with those two guys because those are the most popular mocked guys that could get to them. And then they get a Pooney at 73. Hey, does he start at guard? Because a lot of people reject him as a guard, but he does have tackle flexibility. So, he could go play left tackle next year. Also, at some point, I know Rich did this on my pod on Saturday, like, at some point, like, the Jets are going to have to say, like, hey, Carter Warren, like, can you not play 4 games for us in a pinch? Like, that's kind of like the whole point of like drafting developmental guys on day 3 and 4, day 2 and 3. Like, hey, you're a 3rd or 4th round pick. Good organizations can bring in a 4th round pick and like another year of reps. Carter Warren hopefully is healthy throughout camp. Maybe he shows something, right? Or can Max Mitchell look much more like the player he did in year 1 than he did in year 2? You mentioned the veteran route. Again, we don't know what's going to happen with the field. I'd love to tell you that I think the Jets would like it to be grass. I don't think the Jets are the ones making the full decision there. I think we're all pretty aware of that, and Connor's alluded to that. But if Bakhtiari, for whatever reason, they're able to figure it out, or it's Donovan Smith, or it's Andrews Pete, or whatever, it's one of these names where it's like, hey, can that guy mixed with Carter Warren, Max Mitchell, and another offensive lineman in round 3 combined for like 8 starts across left guard or right tackle and left tackle? Can they figure it out? Like, that's, I just think you hope Rodgers can compensate for a little bit more, but I guess you could also make the same. I don't know. It's hard. You can make the argument either way. I just think the first 2 picks will be either pass catcher O-line or O-line pass catcher. And I think any other route is kind of concerning a little bit for me. I don't like the strength of the defensive tackle class a lot. I think it's okay. Don't love the safety class. I think it's okay. I just to reach there, like when this probably the best unit in football, like the Jets defense or one of the three best defenses, you should be able to pluck a guy in a 111 or 130, 134, like, and maybe get a
Yeah.
safety there. I know you like Vaki at a Utah, like some of these guys, like go find that, or Tulano Hufanga at a USC when the Niners grabbed him, it was like it's a 5th round pick. Maybe he has one deficiency, we'll put him in a good spot. I trust the Jets defense to do that more than the offense.
Yeah, and that's exactly the point I was going to make, is that the defensive coaches, that you can hope that they're going to develop and find something. Go ahead, Ryan.
The offensive line class, I completely agree with what you were talking about with Rich, with the Carter Warren. Like, when I look at Tyron Smith, he hasn't played a full season since 2015, but he's played in every playoff game, all 7 playoff games that the Cowboys have played in. So he's not getting season-ending injuries. He's getting, nicked up for a game here or there, having a rest day. And in that capacity, I do like Carter Warren as the backup. And then when you look at Moses on the right-hand side, 95% of the time, he's always healthy through every season until last year when he tore his pec, and he played through it. So the guy's an Iron Man. So, to me, I kind of look at it and say, in an ideal world, our 10 pick doesn't see the field if we're going offensive lineman. And that's just a hard thing for me to wrap my head around. And I'd rather go that weapon route, whether it's a wide receiver. I'd lean wide receiver. Like Odunze would be, the top realistic option on my board. Hoping the Bears go with a defensive lineman or something like that, and he falls to us. And then I would, look at Bowers. And then in the 3rd round with 72, I do like more wide receivers. It's a weird situation. Like, I feel more comfortable with the wide receivers in the 3rd round.
Yeah, most of those
but
guys.
But I feel like I'm going to rely on the receiver at 10 so much more, than the offensive lineman that I would be getting in the 3rd round.
Yeah, I think also one thing is it's hard sometimes because offensive linemen, you look at it from 2 fronts, right? Like the fact that this guy hopefully will not have to play, if it's an offensive line, hopefully he either can win the job and hopefully they don't have to start. Day one, right? That perfect scenario. I mean, obviously, ideally, they beat out one of the new additions. Not going to be Tyron Smith, obviously, but one of the new guys, and hey, they filled that spot, and both those guys are essentially on glorified 1-year deals. X, Y, and Z will get younger at the spot. Most rookie offensive linemen kind of suck, especially tackles, and that's why, hey.
The Giants tackle, left tackle, Andrew Thomas was terrible for the first year.
So was Laramie Tunsil, and then all of a sudden it was like, wow, this guy's pretty damn good. Even look, some guys go in the opposite direction. Look at Mekhi Becton, obviously, and then he started off well, and then poof, obviously turned into the league leader in holding penalties and false starts. So. I just think, even into Patrick Paul, tackle out of BYU, there's a bunch of guys that are project guys that you don't know where they're going to fall. But in a sense, I'd love the Jets to be able to hit on one guy. The one thing with picks, drafting guys at 73, 111 at offensive lineman, they're either usually only interior guys, which is fine because the Jets, again, there was a real conversation before this offseason started. It was AVT, a tackle, and then you were going to draft a guard or sign a guard. Obviously, right now he's slotted to be a guard, but maybe, maybe they draft a right. Like if they drafted Christian Haynes is a right guard. Like he's not playing anywhere else. So that means AVT is now your left guard, probably. Or there's so many different conversations to be had. I just really hope for the Jets' sake, 4 quarterbacks go in the top 5. I hope they go 4 in a row. I think that at least opens up the possibilities to have a bunch of different stuff happen. You hope that Atlanta falls in love with one of these defensive players, whether it's Quinyon Mitchell, whether it's Dallas Turner, whether it's Byron Murphy, whoever it may be, because they're going to pick that guy between 8 and 12, no matter where it goes, whether they trade back with somebody or not. I have a hard time with Arizona not just trading back. They still need so much, and they're such a valuable spot.
See, I beg to differ on that. I beg to differ.
You think they should just
I think you just stick and pick. They got 6 picks in the top 102, man. At some point, you got to take the best guy.
Yeah, at some point you got to draft somebody, right?
At some point, you just got to take some top talent. And when are you going to get a chance to get your hands on Marvin Harrison, especially when you've traded away, you lost 2 of your better receivers in the offseason, so on and so forth.
Yeah, no. I mean, even if they stayed there, maybe they trade back to with 6 with the Giants and they only move back 2 spots, they can end up one of these guys.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the Chargers are the interesting one. I fully think the Chargers should just trade back. Their roster kind of sucks. If you actually go and really look at it, they've got the head coach, they've got the quarterback, right? That's what all that matters. But and they've got the left tackle. Other than that, I'm not super sold on the rest of the roster, and a lot of older guys, some guys that are just, I don't know, they're making a lot of money. That's the one
I think
spot
they
where I don't
want
know.
that. I was gonna say, I think they want that Vikings trade down. They want those two
Yeah,
firsts.
yeah, because then they get 2 first-round picks. The Vikings come up for their quarterback, but that would mean the Cardinals. That means one of those guys has got to be there. I think the Raiders would love to get Penix. I think, or one of these guys. The Broncos would love a quarterback. So, the Jets, it's tough because if you're trading back, that's the whole trade back thing. Like, who are the Jets trading back with? They're trading back 2 spots with Denver to get a third. It's okay, maybe. But then now it's like, yeah, who's there for you? I don't know. It's a little weird. It's a weird. They're not in a great trade down spot. They are, but not for like elite value. Like I think people think they're going to get.
And that's kind of where I was going to go with it. Like the Bears in front of us only have 4 picks in this draft, and I feel like if given the option, they're going to accept less.
Oh, the Bears would. I think the Bears. I think they get mocked the receiver every single time. I think they would very much be open to trading back and accumulating assets. Like I'd be pretty surprised if there's not at least a good amount of calls at that pick, depending on who's there, obviously.
Yeah, I could see that. And you said 4 quarterbacks in the top 4. I think the Cardinals are such a funky one because the Broncos and Raiders obviously can't trade with the Chargers, their division rival, for the quarterback. Yeah. So that means they're either going to 4 or above. So like I could see if Jaden Daniels falls to 3, maybe the Raiders just give up the farm to go up and get him. Patriots see like, what the Dolphins did with the trade down with the 49ers. They might, find that enticing to rebuild their whole team. As long as 4 quarterbacks go before our pick, I feel confident 2 of the receivers are going to go. Feel confident 1 defensive player is going to go, and then it's just that Bears pick that just gives me that little bit of like angst and like not sure how it's going to shake out.
Yeah, look, there's also the possibility like Joel probably is going in the top 7. Like there's pretty much I'd be very shocked if that didn't happen. That said, like what if he's there and the Jets fall in love with Joel and let's just say maybe, hey, I don't know, they're pick 8 that Joel's somehow still there because somebody picks 𝐃𝐨𝐦 𝐂 because they love or Marius Mims or whatever. Because the Titans can go high ceiling because of who their offensive line coach is. Then it's like, hey, do you move up for Joel? Like I'm just trying to say like there's so many possibilities. I just would like to see the Jets be aggressive here, just knowing all offseason it's been, hey, we've operated on a budget, but we've been aggressive. Don't stop that now. Like I wouldn't like go back into like depth mode, like especially in round 1.
If you could get up to 20, if you could get up to pick 5, and let's say the pick's Marvin Harrison Jr. Or receiver of choice, whatever it is, are you okay giving up the 2025 first? Because I think that's probably what you're going to have to do.
Yeah, I would. I don't know. If you could tell me I could have AJ Green on a cost-controlled contract for 5 years at age, in his absolute prime, playing with Rodgers and whoever, like, oh, by the way, he gets to play next to Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, man. Like, are you getting a better player next year's draft? Probably not. Ideally, we don't talk about this enough because we're not, we haven't seen the Jets pick outside the top like 15 or 12 in a decade. But ideally, that pick's in the 20s. It's a glorified, maybe it's the 28th, 29th, 30th pick where it's almost a second round pick at that point. I just, I don't know. It's just funny. Like you kind of hope that pick means absolutely nothing. And I know people don't want to give it up because we're so attached to these draft picks, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do, right? The Jets last year, gave up, the 2 2s for Rodgers. And, this year, like, yeah, it would have been nice to have that 2, but, it could have been a 1, or like whatever. Like, it's just, we never know what's really going to happen, obviously.
I want to rip through a few comments real quick. Ace of Spades says, any info about the offensive coach the Jets hired? I'll be honest, I didn't realize we hired an offensive coach. Totally missed
they hired like a quality control assistant person. I honestly did not do much like digging on that today at all, but
too excited for the jerseys.
I'll do some. Yeah, I was too excited to come on. I'll do some digging on that and talk about it in the pod tomorrow. If that's of interest for folks.
David comes in. He says, haven't heard anything recently in regards to Davante Adams. Any real chance he comes to the New York Jets? I think the only way that happens is if the Raiders don't get a quarterback and Davante feels like he's stranded out there. And then there's a situation where he like becomes available.
Yeah, I think that's probably more of a trade deadline type of situation. If the Jets don't go pass catcher at 10, they go offensive line. Lazard's not playing well. Mike Williams isn't, fully in, and the Raiders kind of suck. And the Jets are like, hey, one more move. This is the whole plan. here it is. That's kind of more what I would say like is more realistic. I don't think this offseason. I think that's probably something we see maybe the trade deadline, depending on kind of what happens.
So, Will, I want to thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
I don't know where my co-host went. He just bailed out on me. But I really appreciate you coming on.
Get Dom back in here. What is this guy doing?
What a jerk. Let everyone know where they could find you and what you got going on.
Yeah, no, I got TOJ Pod, and then TOJ Talks, which on the Badlands feed, TOJ Pod, wherever you kind of get your podcast. Finally got the YouTube channel up and running to post the video content of the pod. So people have been asking for that for a while, and for whatever reason, I just hadn't gotten to it. So that's up there, and then Twitter 𝐂𝐫11, Instagram, TikTok, all that different type of stuff.
So you can find Will's Twitter down below in the description down below. Make sure you hit him up and give him a follow. Will, thank you so much for coming on. This is Talkin' Jets signing off. I'll be heading over to the call-in show over on my channel, so if you guys want to check that out, head on over there. This is Ryan signing off. JETS.
Just go somewhere else. I can't take this nonsense anymore. How are you going to blame the defense?
I got the pouch. Screw green bean. Damn it.
But once you get to the sausage, I feel like we're doing something.
Go Jets.
And that's the other part of it is the people are insanely jealous of this show. This show gets the best of the best, and it does a different way with positivity.
He scores!
Ow, my head! No, come on.
What would you give up to see a Jets Super Bowl?
All of my friends and family.
Hit those milk duns, boys and girls.
Freeze run.
Hold on to your underwear, ladies, and stand by, bitches. It's now time for Talkin' Jets with your hosts, Matt, Ryan, and Green Bean.
Jets!